Hi, and welcome back to That's Entertainment, the weekly entertainment show where we look at all the interesting entertainment news from last week, this week. This week, we're catching up with some of the studio's ever-changing release strategies for their films and consider some of their many possible consequences. It's been well reported that box office success of ShangChi contributed to Disney's decision to give all of their upcoming theatrical titles an exclusive cinematic release, turning their back on the simultaneous Disney Plus home premiere launch that they've experimented with for the last year. This week saw more evidence to back up their decision as ShangChi overtook Marvel's previous 2021 release, Black Widow, to become the biggest US box office hit of the summer. That's an impressive achievement for a film that features the debut of the little-known Marvel comic book character, particularly when compared to Scarlett Johansson's well-established Black Widow, who appeared in 8 other MCU movies before finally getting her own. The fact that consumers weren't given the opportunity to pay $30 to watch ShangChi at home obviously encouraged additional cinema admissions, but there's one huge advantage the film had because it wasn't available on Disney+. There was no perfect or pristine digital pirated copies in circulation from its day of release. Muso revealed just how popular those pirated copies of films were in their last monthly Film Data Insight report. Black Widow was the most popular pirated film in July and accounted for 27% of all piracy downloads amongst the top 10 titles. The report also showed the way that pirated films are being viewed is evolving, with 75% of those views coming from illegal streaming sites as opposed to torrent downloads. And what is really telling is the fact that all of these 10 most pirated movies were available as VOD titles, meaning those illegal copies looked perfect. Viewers' preferences for pirated VOD titles as opposed to illicit screen recordings filmed furtively in cinemas was highlighted once again by stats prepared by the Torrent Freak website, taken from a large sample of US BitTorrent data. They clearly show that Black Widow was pirated much more, there was a massive surge from the day of release, and after the first 10 days it had been pirated 4 times more than Shang-Chi. But it seems that the pandemic created day-and-date release strategy is far from dead, at least for many family films in the US. Universal recently released Boss Baby 2, concurrently in cinemas and on their subscription-funded service Peacock. MGM will be releasing animated sequel to Addams Family 2 in cinemas and as a PVOD title in the US next month. And Paramount announced last week yet another change to their plans for Clifford the Big Red Dog, the big screen adaptation of the popular preschool TV show. The film has returned to the studio's 2021 release schedule and will now open in cinemas on November 10th, and it will also debut on the studio's Paramount Plus streaming platform. Paramount made the decision after the positive results that they saw recently for their first day-and-date release, Paw Patrol, the movie, another preschool TV show given a movie makeover. And according to Bob Bakish, the president of Viacom CBS, we think that's actually a very good model for kids and family films. Again, particularly in this COVID-impacted time, because it gives consumers optionality to view the product where they feel most comfortable. Paw Patrol was a film which did very well both theatrically, and it was a significant driver for Paramount Plus, where it actually now is one of the most watched originals to date. The success of Paw Patrol in particular seems to have played a major part in some of the changes at Paramount over the recent weeks, with well-respected Hollywood veteran Jim Giannopoulos removed as head of the studio and Brian Robbins installed as chairman and CEO. While movie executives playing studio musical chairs is nothing new, Robbins' promotion seems more significant. He doesn't seem to come from a filmmaking background. He was previously head of Nickelodeon and also the chief content officer in Kids and Family for Paramount Plus. His appointment represents something of a continuing change of the guard in Hollywood and shows once again that a huge part of the studio's focus today is on generating streaming subscriptions in addition to selling cinema tickets. But Paramount isn't fully turning its back on cinema, as this summer seems to have proved once again that those big studio titles need the turbo boost to their brand that only a successful theatrical release can give, hence why the likes of Top Gun Maverick and Mission Impossible 7 remain scheduled for next year. But Bob Bakish went on to acknowledge that in the future, those blockbusters will remain exclusive to cinemas for weeks, less than in the past, so that the studio can build on their success on the small screen earlier than ever. I tend to think that 45 days is the sweet spot for driving theatrical and streaming growth. As we do that, theatrical definitely still matters. So it seems that cinema is definitely here to stay, but its traditional position at the top of the movie food chain is no longer what it once was. After all, selling a cinema ticket generates far less revenue than selling a single streaming video subscription based on monthly recurring payments. To temper that, if you look at the recent post by Juan Herrera, who's quoting the entertainment strategy guy on his LinkedIn channel, Juan points to 2 points of information that I think are very interesting. First, films opening simultaneously in movie theaters and streaming platforms perform clearly stronger when available on SVOD than if they went straight to streaming releases. And not only that the same happens when the film opens with a PVOD release, but audiences are noticeably higher on SVOD than on PVOD. These 2 conclusions, based on actual and reliable data by the Entertainment Strategy Guy, which is the source that Wham was collecting his information from, and are worth their weight in gold for the industry's executives, analysts, and media. In other words, there's no cannibalization of the classic SVOD business because of the day-and-date release, even with a PVOD, rather the opposite. For studios, this translates into making easy numbers. Does the PVOD revenue make up for the loss of theatrical box office gross? The answer seems clear. So what the Entertainment Strategy Guy has come to the conclusion with, after looking at the data, is that by having a theatrical launch, your subscription VOD performance bolsters significantly than if it was just limited to a straight PVOD release. And therefore, theatrical is still a major driver of awareness in the market and uptake by audiences. In other interesting news for things to check out, Joe Rogan recently interviewed Cullen Holbach, the producer of the movie Q Into the Storm. Holbach's comments seem to be focusing on the way that the algorithms within social media are driving us into different patterns of behavior based on the content we consume. And remember, we are who we are influenced by. But one of the very interesting insights was that, during the commentary, he was commenting on the fact that because of this move towards censorship within all our social media at the moment, and this fear that seems to be coming out about certain content triggering different people, Amazon Prime apparently has stopped taking documentaries into their platform on a strategy that seems to be along the lines of we'd rather be safe than sorry. So he actually refers to The Cove, the movie about the dolphin slaughter over in Japan, as being no longer accepted on Amazon Prime, and that the producers weren't able to get it up on the platform. So this issue with censorship is beginning to creep its way across our culture. And, a very interesting interview about a very interesting subject. And if you are a fan of Joe Rogan's, he's got some great guests on there, including many pundits from the movie and entertainment industry as well. Well worth checking out. That's all for this week. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe below. Remember, we publish both to LinkedIn and to YouTube on this channel. Look forward to hearing your feedback. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.